What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Den of Nerds. I'm Josh. This is the Den of Nerds daily show we do every day of the freaking week, Monday through Friday, especially this week where we actually had a Friday show. Hope you guys are doing well. You made it through the work week. And man, there's some crazy news out there in the nerdy realms, man. We've got a lot to get into today. The main topic, the thing we're going to start with, Rob Liefeld goes to war with Marvel Studios. Not a good look. Not a good look for Marvel. Not a good look for Kevin Feige. Not a good look for maybe Rob himself. We'll get into it. I have a lot to say about this. It's a situation that kind of sucks because, frankly, I like everybody that's involved. I like Marvel. I like Rob. I like Kevin Feige. And so it's one of those situations where it's like, damn, man. This situation could have been avoided, and I think that's not the case anymore. So we're not going to ignore it. We'll talk about it. We'll dive in. I have a lot to say. A lot to say about that, so we'll get into that. We also have absolutely incredible X-Men rumors. You know, we've had a lot of time this week going over the different X-Men stuff, and even more stuff dropped last night. Some absolutely absurd, crazy news. Denzel Washington as Magneto. What? Sounds absurd. Absurd enough to be true, perhaps? We'll get into it. I have a lot to say about that and just the X-Men rumors in general. And then we have a very cool story that I kind of want to finish off talking about today. Magic the Gathering. Maybe one of the greatest card games ever created. An incredible strategy game. And a really cool franchise, a really cool IP. You know, Marvel, or rather Magic, has done a lot of interesting stuff in the past couple of years. Developing different characters, developing different aspects of their IP. I'll be completely honest. I don't think the Magic the Gathering brand is at its strongest or best place. And I do think there's some stuff going on with that brand that they should probably fix, because there's some problems over there. But, you know, nothing so outside of the norm for these types of brands and IP that they couldn't fix it and get it back on track. However, this news is really cool. A potential cinematic universe for Magic the Gathering, including shows, including movies, and it's all being spearheaded by Legendary Entertainment. And I want to talk about that very cool story. We'll get into the ins and outs of it, and I will talk about why there's actually a lot of potential for a Magic the Gathering cinematic universe. Like, dude, Magic has some really cool stuff going on that I think would support fans liking it in these other forms of media. It's kind of been a thing that you could tell Hasbro has been trying to crack the code on, you know, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. But yeah, I want to get into that. There's a lot of other little stories and stuff too. So we're hanging out on a Friday, baby. Lots of cool stuff to get into. We'll start with kind of the more dramatic bits, then we'll get into more X-Men stuff. Then we'll talk Magic the freaking Gathering. And then we'll get into Q&A, and I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about the particular topics that we get into today, and just anything in general. There's like a lot of stuff going on. There's so much news this week that I promise you there's stuff that we missed, right? Like, you know, Armor Wars getting canceled, etc. Some of it's just smaller, but if you're interested in something, you have questions about something, hit me up, man. Ask me about it. I'm always willing to get into that kind of stuff when we get into the Q&A. Okay. Let us begin, and let's get into the main topic of today. What? Somebody's getting fired. That's not how we do that. Okay, main topic of the day. Rob Liefeld goes to war with Marvel Studios. I'm sure you saw this yesterday. How could you not? If you run around in the circles we run around in, you probably saw this, man. This is a big freaking deal. Rob Liefeld, the creator, the co-creator of Deadpool. And I consider Rob to be like an icon of Marvel and of the nerdy journey. So the big headline, and this was out in Variety yesterday in the Hollywood Trades, it says Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld will cut ties in all ways with Marvel after he and his family weren't invited to Disney's Deadpool and Wolverine premiere after party. Wild headline. There's like more to it than that. Liefeld has other gripes with Marvel involving creator recognition in the film's credits and what he perceives as a lack of respect from the film and television studio chief Kevin Feige. Liefeld attended the screening at Manhattan Lincoln Square and says he posed on the red carpet for Deadpool and Wolverine, but alleges the photos were deleted before they were posted anywhere. That's wild. So this made major waves, and I think depending on how you look at the situation, there's a couple of different narratives to come out of it. But basically, Rob Liefeld, the co-creator of Deadpool, we found out a couple of months ago, actually, that he was finishing up at Marvel and he was going to retire making Deadpool and making Marvel content. And there wasn't a ton explained with regards to that. And now this comes out. So now he's like, and this, I believe this entire article and this entire story is the reason it got picked up and the reason it got popular is because Rob Liefeld has a pretty popular podcast. And just a couple of days ago, Liefeld did it in entire episode airing out his grievances with Marvel. And I think the episode's literally titled like Why I Cut Ties with Marvel or something. And I listened to it. I listened to it even before this news came out. And it seems like the trades or whatever are, you know, making a big to-do out of this. And I suppose it is a big deal because now we have it revealed that Rob is not just walking away from Marvel because, you know, he's tired of drawing or tired of making comics. He's not walking away to go spend time, you know, working on a fishing boat or something like that. No, he cut ties specifically because he felt like he was disrespected by Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios. And now he's making it a thing. Okay. So that's all you need to know as far as like your entry into this story. And now let me kind of give you my take on it, what I think is maybe actually going on, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I said this at the start, but I'll say it again. This sucks. This is a shitty situation because I like every single person that is involved in this story. I really like Rob Liefeld. Now, I know there are a lot of different opinions out there about Rob Liefeld, and I totally acknowledge that. But for me, as just a nerd and a fan, like I'll just put it out on Front Street, I side heavily in the camp of like Rob Liefeld is one of the GOATs. I think he's absolutely incredible, and not just because of his artwork, but because of what he did for comic books in general. I mean, this is a dude that's, you know, being invited to big signings, and Eazy-E is there. This is a guy that went on late night television. This is a guy that really propelled comics and geeky, nerdy things in the 90s to a whole new sphere. So if I could make like a streaming comparison, right? If you're big into like streaming and whatnot, right now there's kind of a debate in the streaming world as far as like who really brought streaming to the forefront. Is it like Kai Cenat and some of the stuff that he's doing right now? Others argue that it was like when Ninja early on would stream Fortnite with Drake and kind of like brought in a lot of eyeballs to streaming and made it a little bit more cool or whatever. So there's always debates in different industries as far as like who are the pioneers, who are the people that really push that space forward, give it more mass appeal, make it cooler to the public. To me, Rob Liefeld is one of those guys. Like the Image guys were rock stars. And I don't want to get lost in the sauce here, but you know, last year we did a deep dive on the Image guys, you know, on Rob and Todd and their whole thing, right? Rob and Todd, very interesting characters. You know, a lot of good, a few bad, you know, some controversy. They butted heads a lot and fought a lot. But I say all of that to say that like Rob Liefeld is a rock star to me. And I think that even to this day, some of the best-selling comics, period, are either Rob Liefeld comics or comics that Rob Liefeld did a cover for. So it's weird because Liefeld is a rock star, a staple in the space, a big deal to me, an icon, and also actively maybe one of the hottest actual working comic book artists and writers. Like legitimately, just by numbers, I still think Liefeld is huge in the space. And maybe it's because like a bunch of people like me will go out and buy his like covers and stuff like that, right? Point being, like, maybe you won't hear everybody gush about Rob the way that I do. You know, I'm a fan. There are other people that, you know, might not give him all this credit or say all these things, but I do. I think he's that guy. So I really like Rob Liefeld. I really like Kevin Feige. I consider Kevin Feige to be a maybe once in a generation entertainment genius. I think what he's done for Marvel is almost immeasurable. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many ways I could wax poetically about what I think Kevin Feige has done for Marvel as a brand. But one example is the character of Thanos. If you think about Thanos, you know, before Infinity War and Endgame in the MCU, we all knew who Thanos was, but like he was so, like, you could show Thanos, you show a picture of Thanos from the comics to any person, and they A, wouldn't know who he was, and B, probably wouldn't be interesting or wouldn't be interested. Like, Thanos was super niche, super nerdy, didn't break through in mainstream much at all, right? And now, like, that character is arguably more quotable, more memeable, more applicable to, you know, your average social media conversation than even Darth Vader. Like, Thanos is so well known now. Same with Iron Man, same with Captain America, all these characters. I think what Kevin Feige has done for Marvel is really ridiculous. Like, I am in awe of it. I am, you know, somewhat connected to it as I cover a lot of the stuff that the studio does, and, you know, there's enough interest for it that I can literally make a living doing it. It's wild, right? And what I'm getting at here is that, like, in the story of Marvel, if you're just looking at it through a historical lens, or, you know, you just really admire it because, like, let's not get it twisted, I'm a huge Marvel fan. That should be obvious. I think many of you get it and you're like, yeah, of course. But it should be said that, like, I love Marvel. Like, I love Marvel, and to this day am actively engaged with the brand in multiple ways, whether it's playing video games like Marvel Rivals, whether it's buying, you know, figures or statues and merchandise or what. Like, dude, I love Marvel, and I'm a student of Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, all the way back to, like, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, that whole situation. I'm a student of the entire history, and I'm a big fan. And when I look back at the story of Marvel, both Rob Liefeld and Kevin Feige are big parts of that story to me. Like, to me, they are both really important parts of that whole history, okay? So it sucks that these dudes and this situation is involving these two historical figures, these two important people within the history of Marvel, and they're at odds, and it's getting ugly in the press. I just hate it. I think it sucks, and I wish that it wasn't happening. Now, as far as what's the deal? Like, what's the actual deal with the situation? Why is this happening? Feels so weird for Liefeld to cut all ties in all ways, for Marvel just not inviting his family to an after party, right? Like, and that's kind of like what the trades are trying to say, and that just seems wild. Like, there's no way that's true. And I'll just say this. I mean, I like both of these guys, but they're both human beings. They're both flawed. And I think this situation cannot just be two guys with egos that have, like, a difference, or, you know, one that feels slighted and can't communicate it or whatever. I think it's deeper than that, unfortunately. And I think Marvel Studios has a bad history with how it treats comic book talent. And you could argue that this is a Disney Hollywood thing. And I think you'd be right. Like, I think that's correct. And that is to say that, like, you know, Hollywood is, they really believe that it's like, you know, thank you, we'll take it from here kind of attitude. They don't really respect even their actual writers, but beyond that, they don't respect source material. They don't respect, like, it seems like a sort of Hollywood ideology thing. I think it's also a Disney thing. Disney tends to kind of look down at certain, like, the little guy, and in different situations, whether it's the wages at the parks or, you know, this, that, second, and the third, Disney has found themselves in, well, basically on the wrong side of some kind of battle for equity, you know, within its own employees and, you know, artists at large. So there's a pattern here, okay? And I wanted to bring this up too, because you know, I've seen a lot of the commentary for this situation here, and you know, I wanted to bring this up because I think it's kind of important. Sources say that Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting went to the premiere party for Captain America: Winter Soldier, a movie directly based on their comics, only to find out that they weren't on the list. Brubaker texted Sebastian Stan, and he let him in. And we've seen a lot of examples of little stories like this. I want to say in 2019 or maybe in 2020, this blew up a little bit more because it started to seem like the comic book creators were not getting fair royalties or fair crediting when it came to Marvel and the MCU. And I think like the classic consideration here is if Marvel is truly the house of ideas, right? And these ideas then fit into the framework of this brand, and you take these ideas and these characters and allow them to flourish sort of off the backs of creative people, craftswomen of this art form, and they create the juice that then like you make bajillions of dollars off of, right? I mean, I don't know what the number is for Spider-Man merchandise every year, but I bet it's a lot. In fact, as a thought experiment, I would love for you guys in the chat, how many Spider-Man items do you buy a year, just on average? Like we're all nerds here. We know we're going to Target. We see this little Spider-Man thing. We're going to pick it up. There's a Spider-Man shirt. We're going to pick it up. The Spider-Man this, Spider-Man that. How many Spider-Man items do you think you would buy in a year? I got to say, for me, it's probably at minimum 4 to 5. Like I'm probably buying 4 to 5 just pieces of Spider-Man things a year. And I'm not alone. I mean, there's a lot of people that do that and interact with the brand in that way, right? A bunch of people in chat are like 0. Well, I guess that's a bad example because I know a lot of people that buy quite a bit. The point is these characters make $1 bajillion, right? And the people that kind of create those ideas that make up the House of Ideas, in a lot of ways, there's a conversation to be had, an ongoing conversation perhaps, about who deserves what and what is fair for these creators. Now, I think this example with Rob Liefeld is an example of bubbling up tension of a lot of what I just talked about. The creators' rights versus the corporation's rights. And Rob has been in the game long enough to see how this has changed over time. And other greats before him, like Neil Adams, etc., have fought really hard against the corporations to get more rights for the authors and the artists. There was a time where, as an artist, you would mail in your artwork to, either DC or Marvel. They would scan it, put it in the book, and then destroy it. And then there was a time where they started to at least keep it, but it wasn't yours. It was the company's. And now, thanks to people like Neil Adams, etc., your original artwork comes back to you and you own it. It's separate from the usage of your artwork in the licensed property. And that's been huge for artists. That's been really great for them because then they can do stuff with their own original artwork, etc., etc. Point being, Rob Liefeld's been in the business a long time, and he has seen the ongoing battle between the power at Marvel and the people at Marvel. I mean, for God's sakes, this is a guy that left Marvel to go create Image. And the whole idea there, I mean, this was kind of spearheaded by Todd McFarlane, but the whole idea with Image, the whole reason they left is because they were not being treated fairly. They did not think they were being treated fairly. They thought they weren't being paid enough. They weren't being compensated enough. They were the real reason that Marvel was popping off, and they weren't getting what they wanted out of it. So they leave and do creator-owned stuff at Image. That's like the whole idea. So Rob Liefeld is an icon and a noted maverick in the space. And I think his experience with Marvel Studios around Deadpool, he really didn't like it. Now, in the interview, or rather in the podcast that Rob did, and then in the article that the trades did, the focus is really on the actual shooting of the movie, how Rob was treated, while they were doing press and all of these different things. But I think if we're being really honest with ourselves, we know this goes back way further than that. I mean, I follow Rob Liefeld on Twitter, and I'm a fan. And I know that in the years where there was no Deadpool 3, Rob Liefeld would be fairly vocal about how crazy it was that this huge hit billion-dollar about averaging franchise was being put on the back burner for like 6+ years because other stuff was going on. They wanted to do like Eternals and shit, right? So Rob Liefeld has been pretty vocal and frustrated with the entire process of Disney and what they're doing with Deadpool, Fox characters, etc. And then I also know that Rob was pretty vocal about how the X-Men and the Fox characters, and frankly, a lot of his characters, are gold mines. And that Marvel Studios is now utilizing all that stuff to sort of save the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we know there was stuff he said and then he deleted it, right? So, like, all I'm trying to say is that it's a more complicated situation than just Kevin Feige didn't shake his hand at the premiere or invite him to a party. This is clearly something that has been bubbling up for a while, and there's tension there. Some of it might just be from the industry and his experience. Some of it might directly be because of his experience with Marvel Studios after the Fox rights go over there. You know, I'll throw one other thing in here, too, that I didn't know if I was going to talk about, but I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. I'll talk about it, okay? Let's talk about Giancarlo Esposito for a second, all right? Man, let me tell you something. I'm going to pull a Rob out here. Man, son, let me tell you something. There is no goddamn way that Giancarlo Esposito was hired on as Sidewinder, okay? And especially because of what I know about Marvel Studios and because of what I know about the timing of all of this, Rob Liefeld's character of G.W. Bridge, I can almost guarantee it. I can't say that I know for sure because I don't know for sure. But I can almost guarantee that Rob Liefeld's character of G.W. Bridge was who Giancarlo Esposito was hired as. And then around the time that Rob started making some noise about this entire situation, I am almost positive that Marvel Studios changed it and made him into Sidewinder. I'm almost positive. Now, one of the reasons I'm almost positive about this is Rob Liefeld did some serious teasing and some serious strutting on Twitter after we saw the first trailer for Giancarlo, or for Brave New World, which featured Giancarlo. And he had even hinted at it being G.W. Bridge. I won't tell you exactly how he hinted at it, but he hinted at it. And he was kind of strutting a little bit on social media. And in fact, I remember pretty clearly that Bo DeMeo was chiming in on that whole conversation as well. Because one of the tweets Rob made was something to the effect of, me and my $1 million brain creates ideas that companies love, or something like that. And then I remember Bo DeMeo chimes in on that. It was just kind of like LOL, you know what I mean? And look, if you've been paying attention to what's going on online right now, Bo DeMeo and Rob Liefeld are both kind of like, you know, at war with Marvel and taking shots at Feige, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm saying is, I think this situation it's been going on. I think there's like a lot of ebbs and flows to it. I truly believe that the whole reason this blew up and the whole reason that Liefeld made the decision to make this a thing is because he is one of the few artists and few comic book writers that has the platform, the money, and frankly, the balls to stand up to Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios, by the way, I know that we're like post phase 4 and things are a little different and like there's like, you know, some chinks in the armor or whatever. But make no mistake about it. Marvel Studios went from being a pretty cool little idea, an upstart that was like a $400 million business loan from Marvel that they did in England. It was like really wild, to one of the most powerful entities in all of Hollywood. So this is a very powerful, hugely successful entity within Hollywood. Okay? And the fact is, they have not treated, I think personally, they have not treated comic book creators super duper well for a while. And all of a sudden, they besmirch Rob Liefeld, and he just happens to be a maverick. He just happens to be independently wealthy. He just happens to be, you know, powerful, having his own space, all of these different things. So Rob Liefeld basically just decided to make this a big fucking thing. And that's why he did it. That's how he was able to do it. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now. I will also say, too, just to be fair here, because, you know, it kind of seems like I'm taking Rob's side a little bit, and maybe I am. But I will also say, just to be fair, Rob waited until like after the theatrical run and the you know, streaming run of Deadpool and Wolverine. He waited till after his royalties were super secure and then started kind of making a fuss about it. So let's just be real. Like, there's multiple things going on here. It's not just like all about, you know, getting his and the respect and everything. There's a calculus going on for all these different people and all these different parties. And frankly, I understand it. Okay. I understand it all. But what does it mean for us? What does it mean for us, the fans? And how should we feel about this? What should we say in these particular moments? Well, I would say to Marvel, this is an incredibly bad look, and you need to fix this. So, multiple ways to do that. You need to make lemonade from these lemons, okay? And there's a way forward here where you could literally make Rob Liefeld so satisfied that he would literally come back to Marvel and even make more comic books for you. And I know that seems crazy. I think in these situations, the tendency is for people, and trust me, I operate this way too. I am, you know, really stubborn, not always a rational actor. I have a short fuse, and I get really mad. If I was Kevin Feige right now, I'd probably be super pissed, and I'd be like, yo, fuck Rob Liefeld. I'm going to scrub his name from you know what I mean? Like, I'd be really upset. But I would argue, if you put your business hat on and you really think this through, the right move is actually the opposite. You need to court Liefeld. You need to get him back on board. I would literally do whatever is required to get him back on board, to have him do more Deadpool stuff. And why not forge a path forward for better creator rights, better royalties, more transparency? Why not take this very negative, suspect situation, and why not turn it into a real positive? Take the lemons, make lemonade. Bring Liefeld back, give him literally any and everything that he wants, you know, barring some ridiculous, totally out of nowhere thing. But then also work with him to set up better stuff for the actual writers so that they're credited better, so that they get paid better, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's what I would do. And I think if Marvel did that, this entire problem goes away. Because here's the other side of this. They're not done making Deadpool movies. Okay, so Rob picked a really interesting spot to come in and make this whole thing into a situation. They're not done making Deadpool movies. In fact, they want to do a ton of Deadpool. They want to do a ton of Deadpool. Yo, what up, Nerd of the Rings? Good to see you, Matt. They want to do a ton of this character over the next 10 years. So you're going to have another Deadpool movie roll around. Do you want the next Deadpool movie to be Ryan Reynolds is kind of wild and his wife's crazy and maybe that's not good? Oh, and also Marvel doesn't give a fuck about Rob Liefeld. Like, dude, the narratives are starting to pile up in such a way that you don't want no part of that shit, do we? So I would take the high road. I would court him. I would do anything I could to not only get him to be back, jiving with Marvel again, get him to make more comics, man. Like, I'm telling you, just fucking do it. You might not want to do it, just fucking do it. It's the right thing to do. And I think one of the reasons this would be so important is because the underlining issue here is, I think Disney's underestimating how important it is. And what I mean is, like, Disney is just seen as this like super big corporation that is completely out of touch with like common folk and working families. Like, that is the perception of the company right now. At least that's the negative perception that they have to deal with. And people, I mean, at this point, like, I don't think this is so shocking. I think a lot of you guys understand this. Dude, people are so negative about Disney that, like, there's actively whole communities preying on their downfall. There's entire groups of people on the internet waiting for anything Disney does and trying to clown on it, make it look bad, etc. And that's like a really bad PR situation. So I would say anything like this becomes an opportunity when you realize that if you handle it differently than you always do, if you actually create a bridge here and maybe actually make some changes, like, because Rob Liefeld has this incredibly big platform. He does. You can't ignore it. He does. Wouldn't it be great if he became a bullhorn for how your company has changed, how your company is working more closely with comic book writers, helping these people out more? Wouldn't it be great if Liefeld says it was a bad situation, but honestly, they took really good care of me. Post that situation, we're super good now, and I'm very excited for more Deadpool. And oh, by the way, I'm coming back to the comics. Here's some Deadpool comics. Like, that's what I think you need to do. And if you don't do that, the perception will continue to be that you don't give a fuck, that you don't care about the little guys, and you don't care about anybody that dissents. And there's no room for people like Rob Liefeld within the sort of ethos of Disney and Marvel Studios. And I just think that's wrong. I think that's a damaging perception. So I would really urge them to make this right. That's the way I see it. I'm sure there's a lot of ways other people see it. I'll be really interested to see what you guys have to say about this when we get into the Q&A and whatnot. I know it's a sort of tense, dense subject. But that's legitimately how I feel about it. It's like, I love these guys. They're both important to the story of Marvel. This is an awkward situation. It sucks. And frankly, I just believe there's more to it than just snubbing Rob a little bit here and there. And I think there's a way to make it right and actually benefit a lot from the situation. So that's what I got to say. That's what I got to say about that, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's shift into maybe even more controversial news. Let's talk about some X-Men stuff. Now, we've been talking a lot about the X-Men lately. And I wanted to say at the top of this segment, right at the top of this section where we're getting into X-Men again, I really want to preface this conversation, and I want everybody, I want you to gather around in the living room. Papa Josh has to tell you something, okay? Because I can already tell the discourse and the news cycle for the X-Men. I can already tell this is kind of going a bad way. And so I want to clarify and sort of help you guys to understand what's about to happen. The X-Men, this is a super big deal for Marvel Studios. Incredible franchise. Super excited for it. But I'd like you to remember back to the discourse around the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four, also really important to Marvel. Important to their identity. Important to the legacy of Marvel Studios because the other live-action versions sucked. And I think Kevin Feige wants to be the guy that nails it and wants to be the guy that actually makes people love the Fantastic Four. But remember back to what that news cycle was like, man. We thought this guy was going to be Reed. We thought that guy was going to be Reed. We thought this dude was going to be Reed. We thought at one point Jake Gyllenhaal was going to be Reed. At one point, My Time to Shine Hello said, it's a done deal. Adam Driver is our Reed Richards. By the way, Adam Driver is not our Reed Richards, okay? And I'm bringing this up because, guys, we're going to talk about all the different rumors. We're going to speculate about every piece of casting news, every little thing that happens with regards to the X-Men. We're going to hear about it. We're going to freak out about it. We're going to get into the weeds with it. We're going to think about if it was real. We're going to think about if it was on the screen and we went into the theaters and we saw that exact shit. We're going to do all the same shit we always do because we're nerds, baby. And this is a part of the fun. But I don't want you to get attached to any of this stuff. And I don't want you to take this curmudgeon approach where you're like, yeah, but no, probably not though. This thing said that said this, it's not confirmed. What the fuck are we even doing here? Dude, what we're doing here is speculating and having fun, man. So just chill the fuck out, man, because basically buckle up. You've got maybe a year or two of the same kind of stuff that happened around the Fantastic Four. That's all going to happen around the X-Men. That's all going to happen around the X-Men. We're going to hear rumors. We're going to hear casting things. We're going to talk about it in great detail. We're going to make videos about it. We're going to talk about it on stream. And then 2 weeks later, it's going to be somebody else announcing the trades. It's not that serious. Like, it's not that serious. But just chill. Like, have fun. Okay? Now, let's talk about one of the most goddamn controversial things we've ever heard in the whole existence of Marvel Studios and also the X-Men in general. Denzel Washington as Magneto. Okay, did you get enough? Was there enough prep there? Enough lubricant? Are you all right? Or are you going to freak out in chat? Let me know, man. Look, Denzel Washington as Magneto. It's crazy. It's crazy to even say it out loud. In fact, give it a shot. If you're listening to this, watching this at home, give it a shot. Say it out loud. Denzel Washington as Magneto. See how it rolls off of the tongue. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Denzel Washington as Magneto. Okay. So this sounds ridiculous. Like, let's be honest. This sounds crazy as hell. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like there's no way that it's real. In fact, I want to know. You guys believe it? Do you buy it? You think it's real? Let me know in the chat. Of course, it sounds crazy. Of course, it sounds crazy. Of course, it sounds ridiculous. And a lot of the people that I reached out to, you know what they said? No, that shit ain't true. Hell no. Come on, be serious. I heard that a lot yesterday. I heard that a lot in the DMs. Be serious. Be serious, Josh. I'm like, hey, Denzel is Magneto? That shit real? Be serious. Okay. Wow. You know? Okay, so it sounds crazy. It sounds ridiculous. Here's the other thing, though. This is coming from Jeff Snyder. And Jeff Snyder recently had a scoop that sounded equally as ridiculous when we first heard it. And I'm talking about Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, or as Dr. Doom. Yeah. So if you'll remember, Jeff Snyder was the only person in the entire world, the only person on the planet with an internet connection that was claiming that Robert Downey Jr. could be Dr. Doom. And it was so ridiculous. It sounded so crazy. It still kind of sounds ridiculous. You know what I mean? It was so ridiculous that I didn't believe it. None of the scoopers or insiders believed it. Nobody believed that. And then, by the way, anybody that knew that it was real, you know what they did? They shut the fuck up. They didn't say nothing. Okay? Now, the other thing that makes this weird is these are older established rumors. There were actually rumors 3 years ago that Denzel and Giancarlo Esposito were being looked at for versions of the X-Men. Versions of Magneto and Charles. And so I'm not saying it's real. And in fact, if I had to put money on it right now, right? If you're asking me, $100, yes or no? I'm going to go with no. I'm going to say no. But I will also bring up the fact that Jeff has had the wildest, most ridiculous scoop I've ever heard in my life, and it ended up being true. I will also add that there are established rumors about Magneto and Denzel. I think it's also fair to add that Denzel himself talked about Ryan Coogler writing a role for him in Black Panther 3. And we know that the X-Men are going to be a huge part of the next saga and everything after Secret Wars, okay? Now, a couple of questions. Obviously, this is like a mind-blowing thing. Let's consider that it could be real. Let's consider that this could be real. Why would Marvel do this? Well, the thing about Magneto in the MCU is that there's a problem. There's a problem with Magneto. And that is, in Marvel Comics, Magneto is, of course, Jewish. He's a Polish Jew. And he survived the Holocaust. He was a young boy, and he survives the Holocaust. That's like the whole thing. And the whole idea of Magneto is that he's like a mutant nationalist, and he becomes very fatalistic in his view of humanity, which of course makes sense, you know, surviving the Nazis and all that. And so that part of him as a Holocaust survivor, as somebody who looks at humanity kind of like with the side eye, that all comes into play with his character. You know, we can empathize with Magneto. It's not that Magneto is right. It's more like we understand what has brought Magneto to those conclusions, why he feels that way. And the only problem with that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the fact that we're at a point in that timeline where in order for Magneto to be a survivor of those events, he would have to be what, like 80 years old, maybe older? That's the problem. In fact, I feel like looking this up right now. Let me look this up. How old would someone be? Let's see. Okay, so you could technically have somebody in their 70s or 80s. So you could have somebody that was a lot older. But as time goes on, and I believe at this point, isn't the Marvel Cinematic Universe technically ahead of us by a couple of years? This becomes more and more difficult the more time goes on. Okay? So that's part of the problem with Magneto. And I know that there have been different conversations about how to solve that problem. And one of them is to not have him be a Holocaust survivor, but instead have some connection to the Holocaust and also have his own reasons for viewing humanity in a side-eye way. And I think the whole idea, and look, some of you guys are going to hate this, and that's fine. I'm just trying to explain the thought process behind some of the, you know, the people that are thinking about this. Some people have said that the civil rights movement, which happens much later, you know what I mean, than the Holocaust or whatever, that's like an equivalent thing. And that you could instead have the character of Magneto focus on civil rights and that issue as being that same kind of a character motivation. The same thing that's accomplished with, you know, surviving the Holocaust and hating humanity. If you survive particularly horrific events during the civil rights movement, you would also feel really weirdly about humanity, okay? So that's part of the calculus there. And look, I don't know. I mean, your mileage is going to vary on that, you know, frankly. Some people would say that's ridiculous. You need him to be Jewish. He needs to survive the Holocaust. That's really important. Again, as more and more time goes on, that becomes a more difficult issue. Do you do time travel? Do you literally have a 70 or 80-year-old Magneto? And then within the scope of the MCU, right? So let's say they do a 70 or 80-year-old Magneto. My question, of course, would be, where you been, dog? Like, where you been? You decided to get your supervillain on in the late 70s of your life, the twilight of your life, and now you finally had enough of these fucking humans, and you're going to go around and be the badass Magneto that I know you to be? Brother! That's a complicated issue. And so I think that's part of the calculus. Again, you might not like it, and I see some people in chat that are frankly being dumb as hell. You know what I mean? I'm going to try not to get triggered, but a lot of you just being dumb as hell and being super sensitive about the issue. It's not that deep. I mean, the actual issues are that deep, but we're not talking about the actual issues here. We're talking about a fictional character that was based on actual events. And what you're talking about is a company, you know, many, many years later, trying to figure out how to adapt a fictional character and still maintain some of the things that made the character what it was in that fictional story. So if you're getting butthurt about it, you really need to check yourself. You're wound up way too tight for living, and frankly, not a person I want to spend any amount of time around, you dumbass. Having said that, because there are so many dumbasses in the world, I'm just going to go with it now. Because there are so many dumbasses in the world, I think that this is a subject that Marvel should be sensitive about. And I think they're taking a lot of consideration with this, right? And I'll just say it right here. I can see all sorts of reasons as to why this would be good. I can see all sorts of reasons as to why this would be bad. And for me, it kind of comes down to I'm not that attached to like needing it to be just like the comics. And I also just really like Denzel Washington. Like, frankly, I think Denzel Washington is a really unique actor. I think he brings a lot to the table that other actors don't. And I think just from the different characters that he's played, the performances that he has given, I find Denzel to not just be a really compelling actor, but he's able to tap into like this aggressive masculinity in a way that's kind of rare. You know, it feels kind of throwback. You know, we were talking about this in the Discord. Not a lot of people like Denzel. One of the actors that I think actually matched his aura the best was actually a white guy. Early Russell Crowe, to me, has the same aura as like early Denzel. And Denzel's carried that aura. Russell has somewhat, you know what I mean? I think he does some comedic shit now too. But that like very overtly masculine aggression, I'm not saying that's like completely gone from Hollywood, but it feels like it's more and more rare. And that is a quality that you absolutely need for Magneto. So I think Denzel's a good fit just based on that. And I think they could potentially do something really weird with the backstory of Magneto, change it, make the civil rights replace the Holocaust. And I trust me, very controversial. A lot of fans would freak out about it. But if Marvel's in the business of just making really bold decisions and being focused on, I don't want to necessarily say shock value, but I would say maybe more hype value, you know? Like Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the role of Dr. Doom. This is a crazy idea. This blew up, and even if you hate it, you can't deny that it's an incredibly interesting idea. It gets people thinking, gets people arguing, it gets people really engaged. And if you look at why they would make a decision like that, I think it's because they realize the benefits would outweigh the cost. It's absolutely a controversial casting. It's absolutely something that a lot of people are literally hating on right now. But I think it's such a big deal and it's so crazy that it brings attention and it brings hype in and of itself. It's like a real swing for the fences move. And I think if you're just thinking like that and you're not necessarily getting focused on, you know, maybe some of the backlash, the controversy, I think Denzel as Magneto is awesome. I think Denzel as Magneto would get people really fired up. Like maybe some fired up because they're really fucking mad and they hate Marvel Studios and they think it was a big mistake. Maybe other people fired up because they think it's perfect and think it's really interesting. Maybe people just like Denzel and want to see what he could do with the character. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say I think it would be awesome. I think it would be cool. I think it would be awesome. Now, do I think it's actually happening? No, I don't think it's actually happening. And I would be shocked if it did. However, again, Jeff had the RDJ thing, and that's the only reason I'm kind of keeping some potential of this happening out there, right? But let's kind of dig in a little bit more with what Jeff actually said and see if we could maybe get a different take out of this. What Jeff said was in context of he and Rocha talking about Javier Bardem as Mr. Sinister, which I think would be great as well. And I saw some people dogging on this too, man. You know, people were saying, no, he needs to be an Englishman. He needs to be this like attractive, you know, white English guy. That's what you need 100% for Mr. Sinister. And I just don't agree. I think that that's absolutely characteristics that the comic book version had. But Mr. Sinister to me is a creepy scientist guy that's really devious. Those are way more important. The backstory's cool, and it's cool how he was like, you know, viewing mutants differently and basically turned himself into one. Like, that's all cool. But really, Sinister is mysterious, super smart, cunning, you know, kind of slippery as an individual. Those are the qualities that matter. And Javier Bardem, like, it's similar. It's similar to the conversation we're having about Denzel. Javier Bardem is a force of nature when it comes to acting. And his range is incredible. He's been able to pull off really strong masculine characters. He's been able to pull off less masculine characters. Like, he has incredible range, and he would do an incredible job as Mr. Sinister, okay? But within the context of the conversation, right, you've got them talking about Mr. Sinister. And I believe it was Rocha. He said something like, this makes me feel like they're taking it very seriously and they're going after top tier talent for these roles. It was at that moment that Jeff said, yeah, and then there's this rumor about Denzel and all this stuff. And then I'll just say it. I think Denzel could end up being the villain of X-Men. Then it's Rocha that says, oh, so you think he's going to be Magneto? And Jeff kind of says, yeah, I think he could be. But I don't even think Magneto is the villain of the X-Men movie. As far as I understand it, as far as the rumor mill goes, Mr. Sinister is the villain of the X-Men movie. And in fact, I think the plan for Magneto is for him to not be involved in the X-Men reboot movie, like at all. At least that's the last time I heard the rumors. He's instead going to do his own thing. You know, a Brotherhood of Mutants thing. They're going to build up the Brotherhood of Mutants separately. And Magneto will eventually come into the fold. But the main first X-Men movie, that's supposed to be Sinister, not Magneto. And if anything, the villain then of the X-Men franchise would not be Magneto. It would be Apocalypse. But again, you would have to be a nerd to understand this. You'd have to know that Mr. Sinister ends up working for Apocalypse. That relationship would still exist. And therefore, if Sinister is sort of the boss or like the first sub-boss, then the final boss would be Apocalypse. It wouldn't be Magneto. Like Magneto and Sinister don't really work together. I mean, maybe a couple times in comics, but that's not really the precedence, right? So if we just think about what Jeff is saying, and I think what he's really saying is, I think Magneto, or rather, I think he's saying, I think Denzel's role in Black Panther 3 is mutant related. And I think Denzel, just like Javier Bardem, is being courted for a big time X-Men villain role. And that takes me to Apocalypse. So I wonder, chat, you know, because it seems like a lot of you guys don't like Magneto for Denzel. Totally get it. Totally fine. What would you say to Denzel as Apocalypse? Okay. And as you put that into the chat, I'll remind you that Apocalypse is already something that's connected to the actual rumor mill for Marvel Studios. We have reports from My Time to Shine Hello that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is being looked at for the role of Apocalypse in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think that also shows that Apocalypse is a huge part of what they want to do, okay? And one of the reasons, you know, basically extend this whole idea of Apocalypse to the Celestials. Because we've also heard that, like, the Celestials, the Eternals, maybe Deviants, some of the stuff from Judgment Day, and possibly Annihilus, big-time cosmic stuff, is also going to be a focus of the next saga. And so you start to think, okay, they're doing cosmic shit. They want to connect the mutants and the X-Men to the cosmic shit. Apocalypse. It's Apocalypse. He has celestial technology. He uses their technology to transfer his essence into different bodies. He has a ship that basically they gave him. He's in some communication with the Celestials in some way, shape, or form. That would be perfect. Right? I think Denzel playing that character would be awesome. But is all of this just speculation being way overblown? Because I found myself asking the question, would Denzel really be up for any of this? I mean, look, as a nerd, I think it's fun. I think it's fun to talk about Magneto, even if some of you get butthurt about it. I think it's fun to talk about Denzel as Apocalypse. I think all of this stuff is fun. But let's be real. Is Denzel going to pull a Harrison Ford and then do it for years and years and years? Is Denzel really at the point he is at in his career? Is Denzel going to come in and put on a cape or, you know, do something superhero-y, super villainy, and then do it for years and years and years? Because I think you would need, like, if he's Apocalypse, that's like 2-3 movies minimum. Minimum. You know what I mean? If he's Magneto, it's probably even more. If he's a big-time X-Men villain, He'd have to stick around. Or are they really going to do Magneto and kill him in the first movie? God, that would suck. Are they really going to do Apocalypse and then just kill him? So there's a big question as far as like, yo, is any of this shit true? Right? And again, I tried to warn you. I tried to set you up at the beginning of this segment. We are in for a year, maybe 2 years of this kind of conversation. You know, we're going to hear something about X-Men. We're going to dissect it. We're going to think about what it means. A week later, it might be proven wrong. It just is what it is. Everything in life has a season. We are in the season for the X-Men where we're going to get a lot of info, have a lot of conversations, share a lot of feelings. And then we'll figure out what's actually going on. But for now, from where we're standing right now, I find this conversation and this thing from Jeff really interesting. I mean, it should be said that Jeff is pretty good. Now, I think he's reporting this as rumor, and he's saying that he's connecting the dots, and I understand the logic here, but I don't think he's, like, legit heard for sure that this is true. And I wonder what's going on. I would love for an actor like Denzel. I know a lot of you guys would be so mad, and then we'd have to talk about it all the time, and everybody would be like, I don't care. I would face all of that static, all of that drama, and I would literally die on the hill that Denzel as Magneto would be lit. I will die on that hill. And I would be grateful to have him as that character in the MCU. But I'd also be grateful if he was Apocalypse. I'd be grateful if he did anything close to that, because he's just so damn good. It would be epic to see him play any of these awesome characters that I love. And if he does sign up, and if he is doing a more permanent thing, I'm down with that shit too. I think it would be awesome. I would fully support him, and I'd love to have Denzel Washington in the MCU. If he's literally just some one-off villain like that weird guy, Akbe or whatever that people thought, and then he's just in and out of Black Panther 3, like, fine. Fine. I guess I'll take that too. But that's the story. That's the deal. I know a lot of you have a lot to say about that, as I can see it in the chat. And I did technically call a lot of you dumb, so it's all good. We'll talk about it. Give me just a second, though. One more big story, and then we'll break into Q&A, okay? Let's talk about Magic the Gathering. Hey, chat, throw one into the chat if you love Magic the Gathering. And if you don't, you're wrong, because that game is incredible. Magic the Gathering, created by Richard Garfield, a mathematician, is to this day maybe the greatest strategy game / card game ever invented. There are professional poker players in the world that will still tell you to this day that Magic the Gathering is actually the best game ever invented. It's just not the game where the money is at. And so they've shifted to playing professional poker. Actually, a lot of them. It's kind of strange. It's an incredible game. I love Magic the Gathering. I love it, man. Have several different commander decks. Magic was also the gateway that got me into Warhammer, so I'm forever grateful to Magic the Gathering for that. And we have this crazy story. Oh, man, check this shit out, man. Oh, man, check this out. Crazy coming in from the Hollywood Reporter. Says here, Magic the Gathering film TV universe in the works from Hasbro and Legendary. The goal is to kick things off with a movie before expanding to TV a la Legendary's Dune franchise. That's a great byline there. This is Aaron Couch, one of the best in the business. James Gunn would probably say he needs to get better sources. You know what I mean? That's how you know he's good. And so, look, I looked into this. Let me give you like the TLDR here. Kind of explain what's going on. Magic the Gathering and Legendary have teamed up to do this thing. And I think they really are trying to replicate what has been done with Dune. Now, Legendary has definitely been in the business of acquiring a lot of IP and making cool IP content. So they've been involved with like Pacific Rim, Godzilla vs. Kong, obviously the Dune stuff, and also Gundam. It was just put into the news the other day that Gundam, they're doing a live action Gundam finally. There's talent attached. And Legendary is the ones that are spearheading that. Okay, so pretty cool. Pretty cool. Legendary's got some good stuff going on. And I think the model they're doing with Dune right now is pretty successful. Like, that show got viewed a lot more than Accolade and a lot more than like Skeleton Kids and some of the other Marvel things. It didn't do crazy numbers before HBO Max. I think it did pretty good numbers, and it saw an uptick. They just renewed it for season 2. And the style, the format they're doing there is they want to do a movie, maybe have like a trilogy, and then fill in some of the gaps, fill in some of the spaces with the television programs. Now, before I get into gushing about how damn cool this could be and how I'm really excited and I'm getting everything I want and it's going to be the next big thing, just like Warhammer, baby, I should take just a small moment to kind of pour some cold water on this and explain that Hasbro and Magic the Gathering themselves, they have been, let's say, struggling with their community, their fan base, and all the bullshit that comes with having a brand and making a product in these incredible years. There have been a lot of pitfalls. Magic the Gathering themselves recently let some people go. They're trying new strategies. Magic the Gathering and Hasbro is a company that's been downgraded by investment banks over the past couple of years. It's the most profitable part of Hasbro, and yet the growth isn't really there. They've seen a fall off, and they're getting hit kind of hard. They've been a part of a lot of controversies recently. So whether it was the 30th anniversary thing or literally retroactively banning an entire set because an outside company told them that they were out of touch and racist when they made Kaladesh. Zero backlash from the fans, just an outside company telling them that they were bad and then them making drastic action around that. Hasbro and Magic the Gathering, they've been, frankly, fucking up a lot over the past couple of years. So they need to get their shit together, and they need to be making better stuff for their actual fans. And I will say that there have been signs of life and some turnarounds over at that company. The new print numbers, a lot of the new sets, and the strategy moving forward seems to have the collectors and the game players a little bit more happy. Prices have sort of stabilized as people kind of get back into the game. And I think they're working on a lot of different issues and trying to get better at them, and hopefully they do. Now, with that being said, let me tell you why I'm so damn excited about this shit. If you don't play Magic the Gathering, the whole concept of it is that you're like a wizard or a magic user, and you're dueling another magic user, okay? And you use different elements and different artifacts and devices and things as a wizard or a sorcerer would to combat and battle your opponent. Okay? But in the mid 2010s, so 2015, maybe all the way into 2020, Magic did something really interesting where they took these characters, these iconic characters that they have had for a long time, known as planeswalkers. And the planeswalkers are beings within the multiverse that can travel from plane to plane. So they can do multiversal travel. It's a whole multiverse, okay? And the planeswalkers are like the Avengers, basically. They are very powerful, very name recognition famous characters. They all have their own stories and their own unique histories. And at one point, I think it was for an event called the War of the Spark, the story of Magic had all of the planeswalkers team up and do an Avengers Endgame. So this was called the Gatewatch. And you had Jace and some of the heroic planeswalkers formed the Avengers, or what was known as Gatewatch. And then you had Nicol Bolas, this ancient dragon god. And I believe some of the other evil ones were on his side too. And they're trying to take over the multiverse, right? So they did some crazy Avengers level stuff with the planeswalkers. And frankly, it was pretty cool. I thought it was super fun. And it showed that there was a way to do a story like this that would really excite the fan base, have all the best characters together, tell a big story, have stakes, etc., etc. And so, as this Magic the Gathering cinematic universe is being built, I would say, looking at War of the Spark, looking at the Gatewatch and all the Planeswalkers, that's probably the direction they're going to go in. And I got to be real. I think there's a lot of potential here, man. I think there's a lot of potential here. You have a tried and true brand. You have a game that's been incredibly popular for so many years. So many people are aware of Magic, similar to Dungeons and Dragons, which we'll talk about too, because, like, damn, is this movie going to make $1 billion, or am I going to look stupid again? So just like Dungeons and Dragons, but I would argue even more so than Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering has been a huge part of pop culture for a lot of nerds. So I think you've got a built-in fan base. That's something that's always going to help. I also think the world of Magic has almost unlimited possibilities, man. You've got a game that every set, every new series of cards where it's like, oh shit, it's a new set. Let's buy a bunch of it. Let's use those cards to build my deck, make my shit stronger. Every set tends to have either a gimmick or some kind of lore hook. It's always has its own look or aesthetic. So you've got all these different worlds, all these different planes, all these different characters. And at the end of the day, the thing that pulls it all together is like magic. Like literally spell casting, different kinds of magic. So if you're like a blue wizard, you're manipulating like time and stuff like that. If you're a red wizard, it's like fire and like direct damage energy. If you're a white wizard, it's all like healing and purity spells and shit like that. Black magic's all like necromancy or like direct damage death spells and stuff like that. So you've got a built-in magic system, built-in lore, important famous characters that have a history. I think you got the juice, man. I think you have the juice. And one of the things that is cool about Magic as compared to like Dune is really weird. It's super like heady. A lot of the themes are like constructing and deconstructing, figureheads, power, religion, all of these concepts. And so Dune is really cool sci-fi, but there's like some barriers to entry, right? Where like you'll come in and be like, yeah, but what about this shit? This shit's weird. Oh, that shit's weird. There's some weirdness going on there. Magic is not that crazy. Like it really lives and breathes off of the art, the fun, and the interesting things they do with the art and how the characters change and evolve, and the actual core game concepts, which is just like spell slinging. So it's kind of like an easy formula to replicate. Like you don't need to get in the weeds with Magic. Magic doesn't have to be necessarily about anything heavy. Dude, just fun, awesome wizards and witches and dragons and vampires all having a crazy multiversal adventure. I'm all about it, man. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this Magic the Gathering cinematic universe. And I think it might be the next big thing, which I've never said before. I've never saw something on the horizon. I've never saw like a new franchise thing and jumped ship on it completely or said it was going to be the best, coolest thing. I've never done that before. So that should show you how unique this situation is. Doesn't that show you how unique and interesting this situation is? Okay. Let's get into the Q&A. Let's see what you freaking guys had to say about all of these different topics. And to be honest with you, I actually am excited to get in the weeds with you. I know it's a lot. We talked about the whole Rob Liefeld thing. Pretty wild, pretty crazy situation. Talked about some X-Men stuff, Denzel. Just the rumor mill continues to turn with X-Men. And then we talked about the glorious Magic the Gathering cinematic universe and why you should all be excited for it. So I'm sure you got a ton of questions about the Magic the Gathering stuff, mostly because you're all really excited too. So let me know about that, and let me just get into this stuff here. So, Cantina Talks, first in today with a 2 spot that just says "your" with several R's. I don't really know how to take that, but thank you. Jon Snow, welcome back to the Nerd Vengers, and thank you for gifting a membership. Appreciate you. Rossi says, today was a day to be long remembered. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about exactly, but I know that a bunch of you Nerd Vengers are down there in Orlando celebrating MegaCon, having a lot of fun. Rossi's been sending me some photos. I had a little video back and forth with Theory yesterday. And, man, it just seems like everybody's having a blast down there. I'm jealous. I'm jealous, guys, you know? You're all down there having a blast. I got to talk about Black Magneto, and everybody's getting all fucking butthurt about it, you know? So it's like, I'm super jealous. Seems like you're having a great time. Congratulations. I'll meet up with you guys soon, man. We'll be out at a Comic-Con eventually together, and I think it'll be cool. Jennifer Armstrong, thank you for gifting a membership. I really appreciate it. Javier Mendez, thank you for the 10 spot, but there's no message here, bro. Did you just want to put the support in there? I don't know. Appreciate it. Rossi says, James Gunn greater than Rob Liefeld. What? I mean, first of all, you misspelled James Goon. And also, don't put that evil on me. Parker Thwip says, check Discord DM, daddy. Okay, let me see. Let me check this Discord here. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. So what can I even say about this? Am I allowed to describe it? Should I just not say anything and let chat wonder? Oh my God. Oh my God. It's Denzel Magneto. It's confirmed. I have concept. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that. Here, DM me on Discord. What can I even say about that? Should I say anything? Let me know. I can't say nothing? Okay. Joshua says, as long as we don't lose having Deadpool in our movies, I really don't care. Deadpool is in good hands with Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, and I think that's probably the take that most like normal nerds or Marvel fans have about it. And I bet there was even a few of you that are like, I don't even understand why Josh is taking the time that he did to discuss this story. And it's just because I think it matters. And it could be the case that, like, look, if you're not a big comic book person, the name Rob Liefeld probably doesn't mean much to you, you know? But it does to me. And so, given the situation, I would have felt inauthentic if I just ignored it or gave, like, a base level take. It's a tricky situation because, again, I like everybody that's involved and I don't want them to be fighting. But I also felt like if I'm going to talk about this, I have to give my authentic feelings. And I have to really talk through why it matters. And I truly believe that Marvel should literally, like, both. It's not that they're both perfect. But in this situation, given the history of Marvel, given what's at stake, I would just court Liefeld. I would give him what he wants, and I would work with him to create a better situation for artists. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. John Cross says, what up, my friends? It's my favorite time of the month when we upset the Nerd Vengers by doing UFC Vengers and go over tomorrow's pay-per-view. Okay, let me do this real quick. Which, by the way, dude, it's kind of your fault I missed the last pay-per-view or the last weekend because you didn't come in to talk to me about the card, so I didn't even know a card was going on. Where is this? What is this UFC? 312, right? How come I can't see the card? Is this the card? Okay, here we go. All right, let's do this kind of early. Do this kind of, or quickly, rather. Okay. Don't know these dudes. I'm going to go with the dude with the mustache. Hell yeah. Don't really know these dudes. Let's do the Australian guy. Let's go with the U.S. guy here. Don't really know these guys. We'll go with Colby. Don't really know these ladies. I'll go with Wang. Don't really know these guys. I'll go with Tom Nolan. Let's go with the Australian here. Those are the prelims. The actual card. Don't really know these guys. I'll go with the Australian. Don't really know these guys. I'll go with the Australian. I'm going to go with Justin Taffa. I love Taffa. I guess I'll go with Zhang Wei Li, and then I'll go with Strickland. Here's the thing, too. This is one of the worst cards I've ever seen in my fucking life. This is a terrible card. This is horrible. This is a horrible, terrible card. Like, one of the worst ever. And I can't help but feel like they're doing this to Sean on purpose. Like, it feels like every card they put Sean on, they make it shitty. And I don't know. It just is what it is. This card sucks. I gotta be honest. I don't even know if I'm gonna buy it. Like, real talk. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it. Because imagine sitting through hours of these fights. And then Sean and Drake, their last fight was actually pretty good. But Sean's not even that interesting to watch fight. Like, I'm gonna be real. Like, yeah, this card's terrible. Terrible card. All right, anyway, let's get back into the Q&A. Let's get back into the Q&A. Because, goddamn, that is a terrible card. X9008 says, call Rob. Which one? The Exit says, we may learn that Sidewinder / Bridge is a dual role. Oh, yeah? You think so? I doubt it. I think Marvel's... look, I would love to know the truth. But I tell you, my instinct is that Marvel saw it going away, where they were like, oh shit, it's spoiled. And also they were like, wait, Rob Liefeld would get royalties if we did this? The same Rob Liefeld that's been annoying me about not going to this party or whatever? Yeah, fuck Rob Liefeld. I just gotta say. That's what I think is going on. Zach says, I've always wondered why Feige wouldn't want the creators of these characters more involved in making these movies. The answer is simple and also kind of grim. It literally has to do with money. So, if money was not a factor at all, you'd probably get some of the best comic book writers ever to work directly with your script writers. And then you would have some incredible scripts made by the actual people that make the comics, which, interestingly enough, I know I give James Gunn a lot of shit. It's one of the things he's doing that I can actually respect. You know, he brought in Tom King. I think he brought in some other writers, too. And they are helping to craft, like, everything, right? He has, like, a creative think tank there. And if money wasn't a factor, maybe Marvel would be doing that. But I think Marvel is... It's a factor for them. It's something they consider to not too closely adapt any direct comic book story. And part of it's because they'll have to pay more, but there's also fear that like another lawsuit could happen and then they'd have to retroactively pay more. So this is like, I don't know for sure, right? I'm speculating. I'm a student of this. You know, but I will tell you how I feel. I'll tell you what I think is actually going on. I think they're afraid that more lawsuits are going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think they're afraid that they will have to pay even more to these creators than they already are. And so, meaning like, okay. So let's just take the example of Daredevil, okay? So right now, it seems like Charles Soule was somewhat consulted for Daredevil Born Again. And it seems like a lot of the concepts from his work is being adapted in that show. But it also has a lot of other things going on, and so it's not like a direct adaptation. Now, what I think that means, and I could be wrong, but what I think that means is the royalties for Charles will mostly come through, hopefully, a boosted comic book sales for like his run, his collected editions, etc., because they all have like a royalties deal, usually after like 50,000 copies sold or like 100,000 copies sold. It's probably somewhere in between there. They begin to get royalties, right? And so I think that's what's going on. But we know that they also cut checks to some of these authors for the movie rights too, but it's like kind of sus. So like, for instance, they gave Jim Shooter like $10,000 or something to sign off that like his stuff was okay to be used in the Secret Wars movie. And I don't even know how much of the old Secret Wars they're adapting, but I know that he got like 10 grand or something like that. I think even like Ed Brubaker or something got like 5 grand when they adapted Falcon and the Winter Soldier or something. So it's like, they'll cut you like a small check, but it's not like actual royalties. Like it feels more like you're getting something. You're not necessarily owed this, but you're getting something. And I think what they're worried about is if the authors can really draw a clear comparison to the work that they made and how that's then adapted to something that goes on to sell like millions of copies or whatever, it's probably like technically a liability, you know? So like the worst case scenario and like the worst version of this is that Marvel's not, it's not that they're just not interested in doing that. It's that they're actually trying to do the opposite. And so, you know, to take it back to the Liefeld thing, it might actually be the case that Marvel is intentionally keeping comic book creators at arm's length because they don't want anything that can be used in later court cases to show that there's any acknowledgement from Marvel that these are the people that actually created the stuff that's valuable. Does that make sense? Right? So like, and again, all of that speculation, hashtag don't sue me, bro. I'm just trying to make sense of it. But that's kind of what I think's going on. And that's a potential reason that they would not want to use comics. All right, let me get back in here. Let me get back in here and see what y'all have to say. Mr. JB, thanks for 5 gifted memberships, man. Appreciate it. Hell yeah, brother. Thank you. Joshua says, Wash could be a good mag, but I prefer Fassbender. Yeah, Fassbender was a great Magneto. Are you saying you'd prefer him to come back? Not because the skin color Fassbender was epic. Yeah, totally. Also, what about Washington was in Black Panther 3? Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit, but yeah, it seems like he will be in Black Panther 3, although that's not confirmed, right? And Nate Moore kind of threw some cold water on that. But that's like the rumor, right? That he's going to do something for Black Panther 3. The speculation from certain folks is that Black Panther 3 is going to involve the X-Men. Maybe Storm, maybe Magneto, you know, maybe other things. And so it might spin out of Secret Wars, and then the X-Men are just a much bigger part of what's going on. And you would want to then connect Black Panther 3 to the X-Men, which also is a great idea. Like, they should have done that a while ago, but that's a good idea. Not going to lie, Jeff has been working for the trades for years. He got the RDJ Doom right. He may be right about Denzel as Magneto. Yeah, I brought that up, but I think you're right. He was the only guy that got the Doom thing. The Denzel stuff feels like equally as shocking, and I totally get it, you know? But the RDJ stuff was shocking. It turned out to be real. So this could be true. Could be true. Charlie says, I think it would be, or it would go over better with fans if Marvel made slowed aging side effect of being a mutant and then changed Magneto. Maybe for some of the really hardcore comic fans, yes. But you run the risk of like a bunch of normies and a bunch of average fans being like, that sounds stupid as hell. You know what I mean? I don't hate it. And I guess for now, it solves the problem. You know what I mean? What does Marvel do in 20 years? What do they do in 50 years? You know, with Magneto. It's the same thing? Same thing forever? I don't know. The Exodus says, just say that Omega level mutants age slower. You stole that. You stole his homework. I guess. Zach says, I like the idea of tying Magneto to the civil rights movement, considering the X-Men were created to be allegories to racism in the 60s. Yeah, I mean, that's a slightly incorrect statement, but overall the idea of the statement is correct. The X-Men were not created as an allegory to civil rights. They weren't. You can listen to the authors talk about this. Initially, they were not created for that at all. In fact, there was more thought given to them representing puberty. There was more thought given to the idea of puberty and how that was sort of a universal thing that humans went through, and then you felt alienated, your body was changing, all these sort of stuff. However, very early on, they realized that the X-Men were an incredible allegory for civil rights. But like, you look at the initial X-Men casting, it's basically all white people. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even the diversity you would later see with like Len Wein and later on Jim Lee and all that. No, the original X-Men is mostly just a bunch of white people. And what I mean is, like, that's just, if you want to really be a student of comics, it is more correct to say that they were very early on identified as a great allegory for civil rights. And then, yes, different writers and artists leaned into that. But it is not correct to say that they were created as an allegory for that. But that's just how art works. Sometimes art imitates life, and then you find a really cool mirror of the real world, and then you lean into it. It happens. Joshua says, all that said, Washington would be a great Magneto. I mean, I ultimately just land on the fact that he would crush it. You know, like, controversies and discussions aside, I just land on, yeah, I could see it. Like, literally, that's it. Like, I could see it. And I think Denzel would deliver some cold ass lines as Magneto. So I think that would be cool. What if Magneto, wait, what? Love Denzel, hope he can retire soon like he plans to. Well, he technically even walked those comments back. I don't know if you saw this, but he did not say he was retiring. And after that interview came out, he clarified that. He said, I didn't talk about retiring. I just talked about a plan. You know, I'm later in my career, but I'm not retiring. The real Jesse Lee Reed says, what if Magneto is a survivor of Rwanda genocide from the 1980s and blames America for not doing enough to stop it? Could make Denzel work. Well, you know, the thing about that situation that's really interesting is, like, I see what you mean. That would be incredibly controversial from Marvel's perspective, because Rwanda was like black on black violence. It was literally ethnic cleansing by certain group of Africans against another group of Africans. And so, like, in a sense, what you're talking about, if you tie it to Magneto, is like, yeah, humanity's fucked up. Regardless of race, humanity has a darkness that we just can't trust, right? And perhaps, I mean, you could potentially do something like that, and then maybe getting into the ideas of, like, Wakanda, you know, the Zionism or perceived Zionism of Wakanda, their state in Africa in general. These are interesting concepts, but they're also incredibly controversial. So Marvel would have to decide. Like, basically, I would just say, stay away from that shit. Like, I would just be like, nah. Like, that is not a can of worms that you want to open. But if they're being very ballsy and they're like, no, we're going to go right at this and we're going to talk about it through this lens and we're just going to do it. Yeah, it could work, but it would be so fucking ballsy, bro. Really, Jesse Lee Reed follows up and says, MTG is D&D for people with ADHD. Yeah, or people that can't get a campaign together. I know a lot of people that play both. And it's really hard to get a D&D campaign together. You know, you got to have a good dungeon master, and those are hard to come by. But you don't need that for a Magic game, you know what I mean? Like, you just shuffle up and deal. Joshua says, I thought Hasbro was gummy bears for Am I Dyslexic? What? No. Lady Boner says, is Legendary trying to collect all of the TISM fan stones? I mean, are you trying to suggest, Lady Boner, that all of these super nerdy folks that are into all these super nerdy things all have a touch of that? That's fucked up. And also maybe true. Rossi says, I was talking about MegaCon. It was phenomenal. Oh, hell yeah, man. I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad you, hopefully you're still having fun. Hopefully you're still down there killing it. Javier says, Rebel Moon is the next Star Wars. I've never heard of this thing, Rebel Moon. If you guys could fill me in on what that is, that would be cool. Delta Dan says, did you talk Invincible, Heart Community, Nerve Vengers for Life, Ranch Vengers for Life, Three Amigos. I have not talked Invincible. I'll tell you this. Here's what I'll say about Invincible. I thought it was great, but man, that animation is still whack, bro. I'm sorry. I don't know what they got to do. I don't know if there's a good solution. And like, if you watch Invincible, like, please chime in on this, man. Am I crazy or does it look terrible? Because I kind of think it looks terrible. Like, not all of it. There's some of it that looks good and looks fine, but like, bro, I was taken out a lot. A lot. But overall, what they're doing with the characters and what they're doing with the story was super cool. The backstory to Cecil, incredible. Absolutely incredible. The Mark stuff, like Mark and Cecil, kind of like they're growing tension, and then Mark's new power and all that. Oh, incredible. And I'm still really excited for the rest of the show. But man, I feel like the animation's really bad. I feel like the animation's pretty bad, dude. So it's tough. Like, I really want to root for the show. I hope it does really well. Maybe it'll chart. Maybe it's going to get its mojo back completely. But man, it's not that great. The animation. Vandalf the Black says, I know this is a whack-ass point. Oh, Jesus. But do you think the Eternals were killing mutants? The reason the X-Men are hiding? I'm sorry to bring this up. It kind of stayed in my head, and I hate the Eternals. That's actually not as whack as I thought it would be. It's possible, man. I think we might get some of that filled out in Doomsday and Secret Wars. One of the things I'm most interested in as we transition out of Secret Wars into the X-Men saga or the mutant saga is what is going to happen to mutants during the two Avengers movies that then we have to deal with in the soft reboot. Because Feige keeps talking about this. A lot of people are hinting at it. I think Alex Perez and Cryptic HD have both talked about how Avengers vs. X-Men is going to be slowly set up and teased in the next two Avengers movies, and then it's going to pay off big later. Well, what's the deal with that? Like, how could that happen? What does that look like? Maybe it does have to do with the Celestials and the Eternals wiping out mutants. I mean, it would be super weird that wasn't in the Eternals movie at all. But technically, yeah, parts of that could line up. Absolutely. 100% could be the case. Okay, now let me hang out on the chat a little bit, guys, and then we're going to get on out of here. Do you guys have any dope plans for the weekend? By the way, I should have mentioned it earlier. We will be streaming. I think we'll start the Super Bowl stream at 6 o'clock. I'm pretty sure kickoff is 6:30, unless I'm wrong. So we'll start the stream at 6 o'clock. And we'll stream throughout the game. We'll watch all the trailers and everything like that. We'll hang out. I'll eat some spicy wings. We'll have a good time. And then we'll get on out of there. And then we'll talk about all the stuff on Monday again. If any cool trailers come out. Hopefully we get our first look at the century. Hell yeah. Should be cool. Watch more Guyver and play Rivals. I mean, that seems fun. Who the hell's Guyver? What the hell's that? Sleep. Oh, okay. There you go. What's there to stream? Hopefully trailers. Pre-release for the new MTG set tonight. Ooh, nice, man. How did you feel about the MTG story we talked about today? Are you loving it? Are you hyped up for Magic the Gathering? Josh, you're going to start talking about AVX as much as you used to talk about Dark Avengers? Wouldn't that be fun? Maybe. 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 Where were you when the Westfeld fell? What? Guyver's sick? What is it? I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is. Are we last dabbing some wings? I mean, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. Here, we'll finish off the stream by talking about this. So I've got a couple of... Daniel, are you in here? So I've got a couple containers of this hot sauce here made by Daniel Ha. Let me just smell this, too. Mm-mm. It's And this hot sauce is super hot, man. It's got Carolina Reaper, Dragon's Breath, Trinidad Scorpion, Red Habanero, Red Scotch Bonnet, and Ghost Pepper. It's like really hot. It's like super hot. Okay? And I was thinking about doing a thing where if somebody super chatted 50 American dollars, I would eat a wing with like a bunch of that spicy sauce on it. But I can't commit to doing like more than like 4 of those, maybe 6 at the max. And it would be terrible. And it will also probably screw up the content. And I'll just be in pain instead of being able to actually react to the trailers. So, I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be really funny and cool. Part of me thinks I should not do it. So we'll probably do it. Your butt's going to burn. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, pretty much. Selling my body for super chats. Basically, that's what it is, yeah. Can you drink some Biro on stream with the wings? Should I try some Biro? Would you guys like that? If I actually tried some Biro? Yeah. Justin, no, it's your guys's. It's not mine. It's your guys's. I'm just here to please the crowd, you know? Don't die out here. Can you imagine? What if I had to go to the hospital? Wouldn't that be super embarrassing? YouTuber and streamer goes to emergency room after his chat forces him to eat 6 incredibly spicy wings. Yeah. What if you love Biro? Then I will have to use my incredible acting ability to, in the moment, hide the fact that I like it and make faces about how bad it is and talk a bunch of shit. So, yeah, that's how that goes. Well, everybody, I think we're going to end it there. Hunter says, Josh, Marvel casting called. They're looking for a new Apocalypse. Saw your shirtless pic and are interested. Keep it up. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Working out hard, man. Trying to stay fit. I'm actually doing another workout with my dad. Been lifting with my dad, man. It's been pretty fun. It's been cool. Nice little bonding experience. We're doing leg day tonight, man. It's not that hot, says Elisa. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Elisa had a little bit of it, and she was saying it wasn't that bad. But I don't know. I think she might be just trying to trick me. She's trying to trick me into doing it. But, ladies and gentlemen, hey, thank you for being here, man. This has been a really fun week. A lot of really interesting stories. Just so much happening in this nerdy world. Hard to keep track of all of it. Did my best job to pick really cool stories this week, to get into some cool conversations about this sort of stuff. And ultimately, I hope that you were engaged. I hope you were entertained. And I'm going to continue to try to get better, try to get more entertaining, more fun, and figure out cool concepts and things to do to these streams in addition to just breaking down the news and everything. So I really appreciate your love, your support this week. It's been a crazy week. Fantastic Four dominating the news cycle. A lot of X-Men stories. And again, that's going to continue to happen. That's going to be a thing for a while. So we'll continue to cover it all as we go. I'm going to get on out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. See you guys on Super Bowl Sunday for that stream. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video. Is everybody gone? Did everybody leave? Leave. Oh man. Another happy landing. Another full week of streaming, baby. There was so much news this week, and I can't believe we're streaming again on Sunday. What the hell? Also, I can't say much about this, okay? But what I will say is Reed Richards is definitely fighting those super monkeys in that movie. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I can say. That's all I'm saying. And that's it. That's all I got on that. Anyway. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it. I think it's been a good week. A lot of stories, a lot of content, a lot of stuff to get out there. But overall, man, this is fun. Like, it's fun when we have different things to talk about. It's fun when the Fantastic Four trailer comes out and we can actually like really get into that conversation about that. How is it? What are the fans saying, etc., etc. I think all the rumors around the X-Men are really interesting. I find it to be really fun to kind of think about what's going to happen, speculate about it. I hope you're having fun too. I'm just trying to like get in the headspace that like, don't get married to any of these ideas. Understand the cycle, understand the season. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff will be proven wrong. Some of it will be right. This is fun, man. You know, this is nerdy shit. It's all fiction. It's supposed to be fun. I know it can get serious. I know drama and negativity tends to be the way to cover things to get, you know, attention. And we live within a world where that's just the thing. That's what's going on. But ultimately, man, I love this fictional shit. And I have fun nerding out about this shit. And I hope you do too. And I hope that's something you're getting out of this. Hell yeah. All right, everybody. Remember to open up your third eye and wash out that stinky butt.